She was the most feared empress until the balcony rail humiliated her, and a human laughed. The palace of the alien empire stood high above the glowing city. Its walls were made of silver stone that caught the light of the two moons. Its towers rose like spears into the sky, and at the very top stood the grand balcony of the empress. Inside the great hall, nobles and generals waited in silence. They wore long robes of blue and green, heavy with jewels and gold. They whispered about politics and wars. But when the empress entered, all whispers stopped. She was the ruler of 10-star systems. She was the voice of law and fear. Her crown burned with crimson light. Her robes flowed like rivers of fire. She moved like someone born to command. And no one, not even the bravest general, dared to look her directly in the eyes. Among the guests that night was someone different. A human named Daniel. He was not noble. He was not a diplomat. He was just a soldier from Earth who had fought in forgotten battles. The empress had called him to her palace, curious about the strange creature who laughed even in war. The court fell silent when she stepped onto the balcony. She raised her hand, and the air itself seemed to bow. Her eyes locked on Daniel, cold and sharp. She wanted to test him. She wanted to see what made a human special. Daniel stood at the center of the hall. He did not kneel. He did not bow. His arms folded across his chest. He stared up at her, not impressed by her golden crown or her flowing robe. To him, she was only another ruler sitting too high above her people. The empress leaned forward, her voice ready to strike like thunder. But fate had other plans. Her long golden sleeve brushed against the balcony rail. The rail was polished, sharp-edged, and cruel in its beauty. The fabric caught between the bars. She pulled slightly, and the sleeve tightened. She tried again, but the cloth twisted tighter. Her arm refused to move. The empress froze. The nobles thought she was pausing for dramatic effect. The guards thought it was part of her display. But Daniel saw it clearly. The most powerful ruler in the galaxy was trapped in her own balcony rail. The silence of the hall grew heavy. The empress tried to pull harder, but her sleeve locked itself tighter in the rail. The court gasped softly, but no one moved. No servant dared to step forward. No guard wanted to touch her. She was untouchable, too holy, too feared. And then it happened. Daniel laughed. It started as a chuckle, small and quiet, but it grew louder, shaking his shoulders. His voice rolled through the hall like thunder. It was real human laughter, bright and unstoppable. The nobles stared in shock. The guards tightened their grips on their spears. No one had ever mocked her. No one had ever dared. The empress's face turned red with fury. "How dare you?" She shouted. She pulled harder at the rail. But the harder she pulled, the deeper her sleeve was trapped. Her crown tilted slightly on her head. Her dignity crumbled before the eyes of her people. Daniel bent over, holding his stomach. Tears formed in his eyes. "This," he said between gasps of laughter, "this is the greatest empire in the galaxy? And its empress can't even beat a balcony rail." The court gasped again. Some nobles covered their mouths in horror. Others stared at Daniel like he had just signed his own death sentence. But Daniel couldn't stop. The scene was too absurd. The empress, the woman who ruled 10-star systems, was stuck like a child in a fence. The empress yanked again, but her power, her pride, her fury, none of it mattered. She was helpless. She was trapped. The whispers spread like wildfire across the hall. Some nobles muttered prayers. Others trembled with fear. But none dared to laugh. Only the human did. His laughter was the only sound that dared to rise above her shame. Minutes passed. The empress still struggled. Her breathing grew sharp, her anger boiling. But the rail refused to free her finally. Daniel wiped the tears from his eyes. Still chuckling, he stepped forward. The guards moved slightly, but the empress gave no order. She could not while her arm was locked. Daniel climbed the stairs to the balcony. His boots echoed in the silent hall. Every eye followed him. He stood beside her, his grin wide. "Hold still," he whispered. His hands moved with ease. He twisted the fabric once, pulled the sleeve free, and the rail let go instantly. The Empress stood frozen, her robe torn, her arm free. The court held its breath, waiting for the storm. They expected her to kill him instantly. They expected fire, death, punishment. But nothing happened. The Empress looked at Daniel, her eyes no longer sharp, but clouded with something strange. It was not hate, it was not anger. It was shame. For the first time in her reign, she had been humiliated, and a human had been the one to see it. A human had dared to laugh. Daniel smiled softly. "Next time," he said, "don't fight the rail so hard. Sometimes you just need help." The Empress turned her eyes away. She lowered her head slightly. The court gasped again. For the first time in living memory, the Empress looked human. The nobles whispered, the guards looked at one another. And Daniel? He just grinned. The story would spread across the stars. The tale of the Empress trapped in her own balcony rail, and the human who laughed at her and lived that night. Every noble repeated the story in hushed tones, some in shock, some in secret amusement. From the palace, it spread to the city, from the city to the fleets, from the fleets to the empire itself. And everywhere the story traveled, it carried the same dangerous idea. If one human could laugh at the Empress and survive, then maybe humans were not weak. Maybe humans were different. And deep in her chamber, the Empress sat in silence, her robe repaired, her crown polished. But she remembered his laughter. She remembered how powerless she had been, and though she hated it, a small corner of her heart almost wanted to laugh too.